happens. As you can see, we're joined at the table this morning by Greg Henning. He's from Henning Strategies. The indictments remain sealed. So, Greg, let's start there. The indictments remain sealed. What do you expect to happen next? I know it's supposed to happen Tuesday afternoon, but it could happen tomorrow. I mean, whatever. I mean, what happens next?
The defendant, Donald Trump, will be showing up in court with an attorney, and they'll have to appear in front of a judge. The really formal proceeding is pretty simple. An arraignment means he's going to be told the charges against him. That's when they'll be unsealed. And then he'll be asked whether he's going to enter a guilty or not guilty plea. We're pretty sure he's going to say not guilty. There could be an issue of bail, which nobody really has talked about. It's possible that the government says we want an amount of bail to hold him. Unlikely, though. So assuming that happens, it could be fairly quick. A new court date gets picked within the next couple of months, and then he's out of the building.
So would you expect, and even before that, would you expect the booking photo will be taken? I assume it'll get leaked, but it doesn't have to in the state of New York, right?
It doesn't. It's not a public record in New York, but there's lots of reasons why the press or other people would say there's a very public reason that this should be released, to file a Freedom of Information Act request and get it released. So I think within 24 to 48 hours, you'll probably see a booking photo, and you'll also hear about the booking procedures. Somebody inside of that building may leak whether he complained, what he said, but it's unlikely that anybody's going to interview him.
You wouldn't expect handcuffs on the former president either, right?
No, especially with the level of security he's going to have.
Why a booking photo? I mean, when we all know what he looks like.
Anybody who gets arrested is supposed to have a record kept of the person who is arrested, fingerprints, certain biographical information, where they're from, middle name, date of birth, social security. So if he is going to be treated, as some people have said, like any other defendant, he has to go through that process.
Let me ask you this. Sometimes, from the arraignments that I've sat through in court, sometimes there are moments where the prosecutor will read sort of a narrative of what they believe occurred, what the defendant has done. Do you expect that might happen here?
So it's a couple of options here. If the prosecutors decide they want to present that in order to make the public and the court aware of what they are charging him with and what the basis is, they may very well do that. It's also possible that the defense attorney for Donald Trump says, we can waive the reading of any indictment and any allegations. We will agree that there's probable cause. We plead not guilty. Let's move this along and get out of the building. I have a feeling Donald Trump is going to want there to be a dramatic moment. So it's possible that his attorney is going to fire back with their own response to the allegations during that arraignment.
Sometimes when in New York, as we mentioned, you don't see the book. You don't have to reveal the booking photo, although we believe it is ultimately going to be revealed. But they do walk. They do a perp walk from point A to point B, and they allow a camera in there. I'm not sure that'll happen in this Trump scenario.
It's possible that they close that whole section that you're typically referring to. We've already heard word that the Secret Service and local law enforcement have worked to close an entire floor of the courthouse, and that's really for security reasons, to make sure people aren't getting close to the president.
So let's talk about the we don't know what's in the indictment. We've said that a million times. We honestly don't know what's in the indictment, but we understand that at the base of it is this hush money to a porn star, which is a misdemeanor in New York. It's not a felony.
It's a misdemeanor unless you can tie the payments to some other conduct that would involve a federal violation of the law. So Democrats have said here that it isn't just a misdemeanor, that it's going to be a misdemeanor that is related to campaign finance violations. Those campaign finance violations being hush money designed to keep somebody quiet because of what she would have said that could have impacted the political campaign. If they can make that case to a jury or to a judge, they can assert that there is a felony violation.
Well, so I do want to ask you, because a grand jury, you often, among attorneys here, would indict a ham sandwich. So you need a majority of jurors to go along. That's not the same way it is in a
just a majority.
normal
It doesn't
trial.
have to be unanimous.
It doesn't have to be unanimous. So that's a much higher bar. And so, is there something to be said here? Is that an important point to point out, that it's a lot easier to get a grand jury to go along with you if you're a prosecutor?
So it's two things. It isn't just the unanimity that's needed. At a grand jury stage, you don't need a unanimous grand jury to vote to indict. But in addition, the standard is just probable cause. You are not saying that this person did the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. At the next level, which is the actual jury, you need you need a unanimous verdict, but you also need to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. That is far different than what we are seeing right now. Right now, they're just getting over that very first hurdle, saying the majority of grand jurors have said there's a slightly better than 50% chance that he committed the crimes, and he should therefore move on to trial. That is the only thing that's happened so far.
If the president is convicted, it would not prevent him from running for president.
If he's convicted, remember he gets the right to appeal. So there are many appellate procedures that could go through. And the defense argument, Donald Trump's argument, would be, I'm not actually convicted until a final judgment comes in for me. We saw something similar with Aaron Hernandez.
Right.
Though he was convicted for murder,
Right.
his case was on appeal when he committed suicide.
Right.
There is not a final judgment that's entered suggesting he's guilty.
Which brings me to the next question. Do you believe, through your legal knowledge, and obviously, again, we don't know what's in the indictment, do you believe Donald Trump will spend one day in jail?
I do not. I just actually was speaking to some of the other guests that were in the green room. I don't think he ever spends a day inside of a jail cell, with the exception of perhaps if he is passing through it for the booking procedure on Tuesday. I think between his age, the appellate rights, the length of time it takes for a case to go to trial, all of the different discovery procedures his defense attorneys could throw up to ask for, I think it's very likely that he could drag on a case, a conviction, and an appeal for the next several years.
Do you see a push for a change of venue here?
You can certainly make the motion for a change of venue. I think President Trump has made the argument that there should be a different judge to start. He's already said that this judge hates him. That's his own direct quote. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a motion to have the judge recuse himself. That's just one step. He could do that for every judge that comes in. He could do that for any venue because he is so well known and because there's already such a reaction to having this happen to him.
Greg, Henning, thank you for filling in the gaps. Greatly appreciated. Sharman and I will be reporting from New York City this week. Thank you for joining us. Every Sunday we go on the record.